not going to win all the time. You're going to fall and fail and lose a lot more than win. But those wins, man, I'm telling you, they hit.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jack. This is the Pure World Podcast, and today we have Phil, the founder of Ecopreneur, a digital marketing expert, and my friend. Phil, for anybody who's watching or listening who doesn't know who you are, do you want to give them a quick rocket pitch?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone. My name's Phil, founder of Ecopreneur, volunteer platform. I've been a digital marketing guy for over 5 years now in the space, and I love traveling, being in nature, doing that kind of work and all that good stuff. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We are at your alma mater.
Yes.
Stonehill. Yeah, this building is really beautiful.
Yes, I agree. We are in the Irish Studies Library. Shout out to Stonehill. Thanks, Mark and Steven, for the space that we were able to get today. I'm really excited to be filming here and doing everything.
So your time at Stonehill is when you actually started Ecopreneur.
Exactly.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what it is and where the idea came from?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started Ecopreneur at Stonehill back in my senior year. That was pretty much like when we were going and doing that. I started it off as a video platform, and it was really just us creating a YouTube channel that was educating people, getting people involved and understanding about different, climate change issues that we're dealing with. And I started it off with my buddy Connor, and we were pretty much just filming a bunch of content, interviewing people, doing that good stuff. And it was kind of like a good experience for me to be able to get into the space and doing all that. So that's how it started, like an education platform, essentially.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what was the catalyst for that idea?
Yeah, so it goes back to my sophomore year here at Stonehill, and I was in a Everglades kind of research trip, which was really cool. We were camping down there for 10 days. Never did this in my life before, so this was like thrown into the fire kind of situation.
Especially in the Everglades, like exactly. Florida, I would not expect to go camping there.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah,
lots of like snakes.
Oh my God, we were going through snake-infested waters. It was a whole ordeal and like craziness. But it was good for me to kind of learn how to camp and get into that world of things. That's what started my journey, because I saw like firsthand, climate change effects, seeing it all, going through it, living in it for a temporary amount of time. And I was like, wow, how can I get involved to actually like, educate people and get them understanding about what's going on? Because it was like, why don't people know about this or care?
Can you expand upon what kind of like environmental changes were going on in the Everglades and how it was so apparent?
For sure. So like it was, mass evaporation in like different, bodies of water, such as lakes and things. And it was just like, for example, for that, there was like parts of it that were deforested and like habitats destroyed, things like that. And it was like scary, because I'm looking at it and I'm like 70, in the 1970s, you look at it and it was totally like filled with life and natural wildlife. And there was not as many people, going through and destroying these things and causing these issues. So I was kind of like, and you're looking at like side-by-side photos and you're like, what? It's so eye-opening. Yeah, it's so eye-opening. So for me, seeing that, I was like, all right, I really want to, the power of those visuals hit me. So how can I bring that to people and actually let them see those visuals too? And that's like really where it started.
Got it. Okay, so you come home from this camping trip, back up to Massachusetts.
Yep.
And your eyes have kind of been open to, okay, there's apparent, legitimate climate change that's going on that's affecting wildlife.
For sure.
And what do you do about it?
Right away, I jump into building Ecopreneur. I don't even know, like how I'm going to build it or what I'm going to do, but I knew I wanted to educate people about these issues, and I wanted to get into that. So it's funny because I kind of came up with the idea, the name and the branding of it like a year before, but I didn't know where I was going to take it. I started it off kind of like doing a Shopify store. Actually, we were trying to just sell like eco-friendly gear and things, but didn't work out, didn't pan out. So that
was the first first
iteration
phase.
of it.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Very, very early, like idea on napkin kind of like idea thing. So I started it off that way and flopped. Like didn't get anywhere with it really.
To speak on that, it's funny. Like that's oftentimes the first iteration of a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Ventures. They are often leaning towards creating some sort of an apparel brand. And I wanted to like speak and comment on that trend. Yeah. Just to justify it and to like to let anybody who is starting their own apparel brand to like understand that is valuable.
Absolutely.
Because it doesn't have to be the end game, but it needs to be the first steps.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like cause if you are just like, if you're saying, even if you use the title entrepreneur, but you aren't offering some value out into the world, even if it's not like the optimal amount of value, you're not an entrepreneur. So even if you are just selling t-shirts, like you're taking those first steps of action, and as long as you continue to persevere and always improve on your vision, like that's how you are gonna get to the end game.
And that's the journey, isn't it?
And that seems like somewhat of the journey that you had. So so you start with a Shopify store, selling sustainable gear.
Yes, and we actually called it ecopreneurshop.com, and that was kind of like the beginning of it. And we didn't get any sales. I was putting up flyers everywhere on campus and things. We actually, in tandem with that, we were trying to sell eco-friendly, like sustainably made cases, wooden cases. So we called that Eco Case, which was really funny. That did a little bit of some traction. We were able to sell about 100 of those cases in the US, which was great. But it was also a good learning experience for me because I never knew anything about customer experience, customer support, any of that stuff. So like I was staying up late nights after, class at my house down the street, and pretty much it was just me. It was a one-man show, and I was going through and just answering emails and like trying to get back to people, like where's my my cases or whatever, and things. And it was good because it allowed me to kind of start to understand like how to be an entrepreneur, how to sell things, how to make sure that people are happy, your customers come first, things like that. So these were really hardcore lessons that I started picking up. And then from there, that's kind of like when it started going beyond that. And when I went on the Everglades trip, I transitioned completely from that to education and video content. And that's that trend that I saw as well with like TikTok coming into the fold, things like that. I was like, okay, how can we really start to take advantage of that and like jump into it? At first, we started with long form content, which was probably not the move because we had drop off of people at certain points in the content that we were shooting. So then we transitioned to like, how do we start to push out more short form content? And that drastically changed everything. We started to get a lot more traction. A lot of people started paying attention. So, What
was the content strategy? What type of content were you putting out?
Absolutely. It was still really educational and like all about climate change, but we started to take a twist in the sense of, different interesting topics within the space and futuristic concepts that people can learn about that they may not have been exposed to before. One example of that is the Venus Project. We shot a documentary, which was really cool. And that's what kind of launched us into getting a lot of recognition. We even got worldwide recognition out of that. And pretty much that was the catalyst for us in the sense of figuring out the type of video content that we want to produce and get people engaged on.
What is the Venus Project?
Yeah, it was really cool. It was a futuristic concept down in Venus, Florida. Mm-hmm. So me and Connor and a couple of our team kind of went down there, and we pretty much just shot content around the Venus Project. It's like a really cool futuristic like nonprofit that focuses on the betterment of the world, natural resources, development of those things. And like it was really, really interesting because it looked away from the capitalist kind of model that we're so used to in Western society. And like, how do we incorporate the environment and like all those important things that we're dealing with today, and wrap it up into kind of like one society.
Yeah, I remember seeing a little bit of content from that experience, which seemed really cool.
Yeah.
Who was paying for the plane tickets?
Oh, it was all out of pocket.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it was all out of pocket, and pretty much we had to figure out like, okay, we're gonna get the team down there. It was just me, Connor, and our friend Kennedy, his girlfriend actually, and at the time, and pretty much it was all three of us, and we were like, okay, we got to get down there. We have to go film this content. It was a really small team, and then how do we then get this to the world? And we were doing so much planning around it, like what kind of questions do we want to ask and how can we keep it engaging? And we were luckily able to figure that out, which was great. And from there we knew like, okay, this is the type of content that's going to keep people interested, but now how do we make it better? And that's when we started getting into the short form content and all that kind of good stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you start out as this kind of content, almost like an advertising platform.
For sure.
You do your first pro bono project, and then what?
And then we push it out there, and we put it on YouTube. And to this day, it generates thousands of views a month, and it's getting a lot of traction still, because it's such an interesting topic and concept for people that really most people haven't been exposed to. So, you know, for us, it was really cool because then we got to see like a lot of people engaging in traction and questions, and people reaching out to me, you know, checks being written, sent out to me. It was ridiculous. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So how long do you continue the phase of being a content mechanism?
Right up until the pandemic. So when the pandemic hits.
And that's after you've graduated?
After we graduated. So Connor and I, we graduated 2019. We were doing the whole video content throughout all of 2019. We shot the Venus Project like fall 2019, so like towards the end of the year, produced it right before the pandemic hits. And then everybody took a step back, of course, and it really set everyone's clock backwards. And we all have this time in our hands, but we can't really do anything because we're all sitting at home and it's like, what do we do next, right? So then at that point, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to move forward with this platform? And that's when I kind of came across a couple of mentors of mine at the time that have been helping me build my platform, giving me, you know, kind of important things to think about, nuggets, how to think about how to be an entrepreneur, how to actually build a formidable platform, not just kind of, and nothing wrong with a lifestyle platform at all. I know many people that are extremely successful with that, but how do you take that from a lifestyle to like, you know, $1 billion kind of idea? And that's when I started to be on that journey of the pivot of just from education to actually allowing people to take action. So, yeah,
it's interesting because I think that is a phase of entrepreneurship that a lot of people go through where it's like, now I have to figure out how money and value are actually exchanged.
Yes.
It's the idea of like, I think for Ecopreneur, it's this idea of like, what if it was like a marketplace?
Yeah.
What if it were a multi-sided marketplace where there are different people or different groups who are giving value, and there's another group that is naturally receiving value that they would even pay for in exchange, and that's what a sustainable business is. A lot of people don't realize that sustainability in terms of entrepreneurship
absolutely
means economic sustainability.
Yes.
Means you need to be generating a profit, unless you're going to be a nonprofit, which is fine as long as like that's totally fine. You just need to raise the donations to keep you going and make sure that the value you are putting out is worth the money that people are donating.
Yep.
But so you go and you start to transition to, okay, beyond just educating, but really that there's action that's taking place and there's value that's being exchanged.
Yes, exactly. And I started to think back to high school. I was like, what was my experience like when I first got exposed to the environment of things, the natural world. And that's, that reflection really tremendously helped, because then it allowed me to start to think about that value add and things that I kind of went over my head before that I wasn't thinking about. I started to really think about more often, because the mentors I had around me, the things that I started being exposed to, I was becoming more mature in that sense. Instead of thinking only in my head and drinking my own Kool-Aid, I guess, I was starting to really think about how can I actually add value to people's lives. And then I started thinking about, different things and ideas that I would shoot out with my mentors. And they were like, think about maybe your volunteer experience. Like, how was that like? And then I started to think more and reflect on that. And I was like, that was actually kind of painful.
Yeah. It was confusing.
Yeah.
And there were these arbitrary expectations of volunteer work. I remember, I think there was a number of volunteer hours that we were supposed to get.
Yes.
I can't remember, for maybe honor society or something.
Yeah. Typically, what is it, like 20 to 40 hours, like a year or something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there were always like these opportunities, like random opportunities to volunteer in all different ways.
Yes.
There wasn't much structure around it. I think there was one teacher in my school who was like distributing these volunteer events, like the information for the volunteer events. What was your experience like?
It was pretty much the same thing. I think most schools, they have kind of that campus ministry person, the campus minister, if you're like going to some sort of religious school in a sense, or, your guidance counselor, or your like kind of career center department within the school. And it allows for you to find those opportunities and get involved and volunteer and do those things. But like you said, it was very limited. A lot of the time, those kids, you're forced to kind of do something like one organization that the school's maybe partnered with. You got to go volunteer for this, and you don't have like any other options, and you're kind of just stuck there like, okay, I guess I'm going to do this today. And that's that. And you have no say, you have no flexibility. You have no freedom to be able to find what you're actually interested in or things that you personally want to support.
It never really seemed like what true volunteering is.
No.
For me. It always, because volunteering by definition means that like you're doing it out of like the goodness of like what you want to do, I guess.
Yes.
There are people who go to court and they get in trouble and then they have to do their volunteer hours.
Yep.
Like that's not volunteering, because you are exchanging, you're getting, you're doing that as punishment. Right. Then there is the volunteering in high school, which is like you're doing it for a cause. You're doing it because you have a quota of hours that you are expected to volunteer. Exactly. And so then you're picking up any volunteer hours that are thrown your way, and it's like, I remember we were building a new like field. Yeah. And like volunteer hours, like the hockey team is going to go out and move bags of stones and like whatever they volunteer gave you. This is, they're trying to save money on the stadium. Yes, exactly. It's always kind of that, and then they could justify it with volunteer. Yep. It's really interesting.
It is, and those are inefficiencies that I kind of noticed, and that's what started the action side of our platform, and that's when I started to learn about that, and I was like, okay, there is a problem there. One, and that's kind of the first problem I noticed. It was limited volunteering opportunities for students. And, you know, as much of a problem as it is, I started to think even more deeply, is this a big enough problem for the marketplace to be built here, or the platform that we want to go in the direction of allowing people to take action? And it wasn't enough. It wasn't going to be a needle mover, I guess you could say, for lack of better terms. Like, really, it was just that kind of first issue. So then I started thinking more about the market and started thinking more about, okay, who provides these, you know, opportunities for the students? That's the nonprofits, that's the towns, that's the cities, you know, those organizations that need to fulfill these hours. What are their problems? What are they facing? And I started thinking more in that lens. And I was pretty much throughout the pandemic just doing all this research, coming up with the hypotheses and trying to figure out, like, what are the problems that they're facing? Jumping on conversations of speaking with different organizations like Arbor Day Foundation, you know, huge organizations like that, and hearing their kind of like issues. And a lot of the common themes that I started to pick up was they don't know how to drive effective volunteers, especially in younger generations, like our generation, Gen Z, younger. They don't know how to access that. And that's when I put two and two together. I was like, well, typically that's going to be the students that's kind of like that population that they're going after. Interesting. Okay. What other issues are you guys finding? Well, we're not getting visibility. And that was another big thing. Oh, you're not getting visibility. Interesting. Okay. That's where the video content that we've had expertise on, like, started to kind of come into play. And then just kind of connecting the dots there and figuring out, like, oh, that makes sense. Okay. And that was kind of our second player in the market that we were trying to build. Now, we're kind of and that's where we're at right now, actually, with our volunteer platform. Like, we're just focusing on building the growth into it, getting the student volunteers on board, getting the nonprofits with those projects on board. They can create projects through our portal, things like that. And then what's that last component? Like, because Ecopreneur is trying to stand as a for-profit, you know, we're trying to step away from the whole status quo of you have to be a nonprofit to be able to do this work. Because we want to show that there can be equity within, you know, the space of environmentalism, climate change, whatever you want to call it. And that's when I started to get into figuring out, like, how can we actually get paid to do this? And that's that last component there that we've started to really try to build into it. And, you know, funny enough, actually, with your platform, Pure World, we were able to do our first pilot campaign testing that last year.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was really cool.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about what that was?
Absolutely. So, you know, for last July, July 2022, we were partnering with Camden, New Jersey, and they had a project where they were trying to clean up one of their parks and kind of around the city. And we wanted to test the whole idea of allowing for volunteers to get rewarded for doing good work and doing good. So we partnered with, you know, Pure World, and we were able to then, you know, give out your bags, which was really cool. And you were able to donate us about 20, and that was fantastic. And we had a great time doing that. And, you know, the volunteers ate it up. And they were all about it. They were like, what's Pure World? What is this? Like, these bags are so cool. They're beautiful. And at that point, we hit gold. We were like, this makes sense. And that's when we started to figure out that the platform was a marketplace that showcased that nonprofits can get visibility to put their projects on our platform. Student volunteers can volunteer for these projects without any cost to both of those groups. But then brands we work with to get them visibility to those younger audiences and allow you guys to do good through our model of rewarding the volunteers, which we call incentivized activism, which is really, really cool concept that I've started to come up with.
Yeah, and incentivized activism is a fascinating concept. I haven't heard those two words put together before, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So the company gets essentially marketing value.
Yes.
And that's where the value gets exchanged.
Exactly.
The kids are getting their volunteer hours in. The nonprofits are getting they are volunteers to accomplish their projects.
Exactly. Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot of exchange of value going on.
There is. It's a lot of value exchange that's happening on our platform because it syncs all beautifully. 3 groups that you wouldn't expect coming together come together. And that's what we provide. And the beautiful thing about it is, you hit it right on the nail, Jack, where, when it comes to the value for the brands, they're coming in and they're getting that marketing value that, not just the video content, but metrics that we're tracking on our end to allow for those brands to see what kind of impact are they having on projects that they're going ahead and sponsoring, essentially through the rewards that they give out. The way that that's done is you kind of match yourself with different projects that you want to sponsor, essentially, and you can give up a certain reward for that particular project. So I'm a 15-year-old student coming in and I want to sign up for this project that's being, tree planting, for example. Cool. I get to earn these pair of boots for tree planting is essentially what it is. And those pair of boots would be Timberland, for example. Timberland went ahead and sponsored this project. I get to earn their pairs of boots just for tree planting for the next 3 hours. That is dope. I'm going to do that. And that's essentially our platform. And yeah.
One thing that I think, like, coming from the brand perspective,
mm-hmm.
I think about, like, whatever the value that I'm putting in,
mm-hmm.
the either product or money or both, depending on, like, I'm not sure. I think that's right. Is that
yes.
usually it? Money and product?
Pretty much.
So depending on, as a company, what I'm putting in order for it to be a good investment, I need to know that I'm getting, honestly, equivalent or more value out of it.
Yes.
And that value is difficult to put a number on.
Absolutely.
But it's very easy for me to put a number on the amount of dollars that I'm investing and the value of the cost of the goods
for sure.
that I'm donating. So
yeah,
I think my advice is just make sure that like from the brand perspective, they want to know that this is essentially an investment, and that
yes.
that like it's really hard to evaluate something that's so intangible.
Right. Yes.
But if I put my money on Facebook and Instagram advertising, I can see that I'm getting a return in revenue. Yes. And so that they're different, and comparing the two are obviously like you yes. can't compare them one to one. No. It really comes down to how much does the company want to, like, have a like a impact on right. the community, on the environment.
For sure. And, we go beyond that, because that was another thing that I was challenged with within the past year. 2022, we got to the point where we got into a pre-accelerator program. We just recently wrapped building our platform where you can sign up as either of the parties that I mentioned, brand, nonprofit, volunteer, whatever it is. And you bring up good points, Jack, because I was thinking about, like, okay, and I know that these are conversations we've even had in the past personally, and I was like, how can I actually add value to the brand beyond just the kind of social impact that they have, right? And that's where I started doing a lot of more digging, a lot of more thinking, research, conversations, which is the most valuable thing, in understanding what does that value look like. We actually identified, instead of kind of going the route of a digital marketing agency where, there's a return on your investment, ROAS, they call it, where you're getting, the dollars back for every dollar you spend, you get like $4 back, whatever that may be. How can we add value in our own way that's different? And we actually identified in the influencer marketing industry that, a lot of these brands are paying top dollar, huge amounts of money for these influencers. And really, there's a huge trend and a lot of research behind the fact that micro-influencers are a lot more effective than paying like a Kylie Jenner $1 million to kind of push your product and hoping that there's going to be a return there. Why is it not, easier for brands to then just go directly after their audience, getting them to talk about their product naturally in a very natural way, rather than feeling like an advertisement that you're getting hit with 30 seconds on Instagram? How can we actually allow for people to naturally come across your products and things of that nature? So I started thinking, why don't we go after the influencer marketing, industry and create brand champions for those brands through our volunteers? And that's how it can be done. We would track a lot of different unique metrics for the brands, such as social media mentions, follows that they're getting online, things like that, and allow for them to get value in a different way. It's not maybe that dollar for dollar value, but it's still that social media growth that they would have invested in anyways. So why not doing it in a targeted and really almost guaranteed manner? Because the way that we've actually built our process a little, and I'll divulge here a little bit, is essentially the volunteers that are going in and checking into the projects on our platform through Ecopreneur when they're signing up for these projects. Part of that process is a social media check-in, we call it, where they would go ahead and, mention the project that they're in, mentioning the brand, the nonprofit, and maybe a hashtag unique to that project, as well as following the brand on whatever couple of social media platforms that they'd like to through our platform. So it allows for that direct value for the brands there.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So what now, that was maybe our trial run was, how long ago was it?
Yeah, it was
a little
July,
while ago.
July 2022.
Yeah. Okay. So where have you gone and what are you working on as of recent?
Yeah. So some really great and exciting kind of things in the works right now. We've started to partner with a bunch of different nonprofits and some towns that we're talking to, but we're of course in talks with Camden. That's where we started. That's kind of like our origination point. So we're working with them to see if we can get their projects on our platform this year. They typically do about 20 to 30 projects a year. And it's really, really cool because it allows for, that visibility to the students in the area to be able to sign up and do those things. We're in talks with the public schools in Camden, for example, different towns in New Jersey, such as Pompton Lakes. We actually just got them to sign up on our platform and start putting projects on there. So really, really great experience and exciting to, start working with them. We also have the Salvation Army, the YMCA down in Jersey. We've started to, and that's where I'm originally kind of like living right now. I'm originally here from Boston, but moved to New Jersey about 1.5 years ago, so started building those relationships down there. And then my co-founder, Jared, he's still up here in Boston, but we're really just going to start going after nonprofits and cities in New Jersey and Massachusetts and allowing them to partner with us there. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So for me, like one thing that I'm thinking, like important stakeholders are the teachers who are in charge. You mentioned a minister like of a high school or something. Yes. Like we just had one teacher who was like in charge of like the volunteer work and signing kids up to do their volunteer hours. She was in charge of the honor society, chapter of our high school. Okay. And so I think if you were able to, it's a supply and demand conversation.
Absolutely.
If you have on both ends, like the students have demand for the volunteer work, and also the organizations have demand for the students to do it, and vice versa, each of them are their own supplies. Like if you could get the teachers to say, all of our students, you sign up for your volunteer work from the website, from Ecopreneur.
Yes.
That would be great. Or if you got all of the volunteer activities to be like showcased in Ecopreneur, then all the students would have to go. And so
for sure,
sometimes like these platforms, it's always like a chicken and the egg scenario.
It is.
Who do you get there first? You kind of need both.
You kind of need both. And that's what we're doing. It's exactly that dilemma that we've dealt with. It's like, who do we go after? Is it the brands? Is it the nonprofits? Is it the volunteers? What we identified is like, build the supply before the demand. Build the growth into it first. Get the students to sign up. Go after those schools. Build, portals and hubs around that. one thing that we've built in is when you sign up as a volunteer, as a student, you get to choose the school that you're, essentially attending. And it's really great because then it allows us to then create those portals for the schools in the future to get them on board, start getting them to be a part of, our platform as well. They can create and assign different administrators and people to kind of manage the fact that their kids are getting involved in doing that stuff. So that's essentially what we want to do. We want to build the projects in there first, the volunteers, build enough of an audience, and then we say, hey, brands, we have 10,000 kids on here right now that are volunteering. We have 50 different nonprofit organizations or cities or towns that are on board putting projects up. Do you want access to that? Is really the next question.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think if you had both of, like, focusing on the actual
yes
volunteer activities, getting those there, getting the students or the volunteers on the platform. Once you've established that, then you will have true value that you can exchange for advertising with the people who are paying.
Exactly.
But it's always like there's a growth aspect of it. Like you have to grow to a size that's large enough.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So then you have to have a runway.
Yes.
And you have to think about how long can we continue doing this? Maybe losing money. How long can you continue to invest your own savings or something?
For sure.
Before it becomes before you lose. Yeah.
The beautiful thing is that with a platform like ours, we really don't have that many upfront costs. Mm-hmm. Besides the build of the platform, and we're kind of currently, making those bug fixes and doing those little things with our development team. Besides that, there's not really much to it. Paying for the website yearly, little things like that. But besides that, it's really just evergreen. It's just keep it rolling, keep it running, make it available for people. And once we have that growth, then, we can monetize.
Can you talk a little bit about what your experience has been trying to actually develop software that functions?
Oh my goodness. That's going to be a whole book that can be written about this, and I can go on for hours. But in a nutshell, essentially, it's a challenge. It really is, because you have to understand that if you want to build a platform that makes sense, you need to have a resourceful mindset. You really also need to understand that you can't do it by yourself, and you need a team around you to help you fulfill and execute that. For me, on my end, I started thinking about building a platform during the pandemic. That's when we started to pivot from the education to the action side of things. So I was, in 2020 trying to figure out who's a developer that can help us build our platform. And I was looking on, I went on Fiverr, like a lot of entrepreneurs do, and I was looking for those contractors to help us out. Came across a couple, got somebody to help us out. He helped us for 6 months and then disappeared. I never heard from him again. We were communicating on WhatsApp. I think he was from Colombia or something.
How much money had you invested in him?
I put, oh my God, it's embarrassing to say, I probably put in $3,000-$4,000.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't sound embarrassing.
Yeah,
don't worry.
Yeah.
It could have been way worse.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say a worse number.
No. Luckily not. But yeah, no, put that money in. We had some sort of platform, and then just never heard from him again. And I was like, oh man, okay, just my luck. What are we going to do now? So it kind of went dark for a little bit. And I was trying to figure out who's a developer, who's somebody that we can hire to really just build it. So, I went through a couple more developers, weren't so great, false claims.
Where were you finding them? Fiverr,
Upwork, any of these higher kind of platforms, higher talent. I was going on all of them, and I just wasn't really having that much luck. I went through probably 3-4 different developers. All of them were kind of just either disappeared on me, or they just didn't have the credentials that they claimed to have, and it screwed me. And I was kind of blowing through money like crazy, and at the end of it, I probably at that point spent $6,000 and still didn't really have anything. And I was like, oh man. I don't really have a platform, I'm blowing through all this money. And I was kind of on the verge of giving up, honestly, at that point. I was really just thinking, like, is this worth it? But then finally, I come across the pre-accelerated program that I came across when I moved down to Jersey, called Black and Latinos in Tech at Rutgers University. It was a really cool program that they have going on over there. They run it, I think, every couple of years or so. And I luckily got into that. I applied, probably fall 2021, heard back about spring 2022. And I was like, whoa, okay, it's go time. And
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was cool. And at that point, we started to really just go through the program, figure out all the little nitty gritty details that I needed to do. At that point, I got my co-founder, Jared. He joined on, which was really exciting.
Did he join on before or after you got into the accelerator?
Yeah, funny enough, he actually has been there since the beginning. Like when I started here at Stonehill, he was actually helping us out. He was about a grade under me, so he started off just helping us with graphic design work. At the time, he joined our team, just like minimal kind of like role. He was just helping us out like with the designs and figuring out like our logo iteration and like color palettes and like all that good stuff, and the classic marketing thing. I actually made a lot of mistakes at that time because I was so egotistical. I was thinking like, oh, I'm this big shot little kind of like entrepreneur trying to build something here. And like, we had a little bit of a falling out, unfortunately, but, about a year after that, I kind of took a step back, and this was kind of during the pandemic actually. And I reached back out to him. I was like, hey, I'm still serious about building Ecopreneur. There's still things that I'm trying to do. Do you still want to work with me? Do you still want to be my friend? Because that was the most important thing to me. We were friends before we started the business relationship, but then we transitioned and started doing that and really became best of both worlds. He was like, heck yeah, luckily he was mature enough to kind of move past what we went through. And I was too. And that's what I love about him. He's been able to kind of work, past those things. And, moving down to Jersey and going through the pre-accelerator program, I made him my co-founder because it was tremendous value that he was bringing to the platform, the ideas, the strategy, the operations behind it, the execution, the drive that he had too. And yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about what it's like to have a co-founder and how what the teamwork is like and what team management
for sure
lessons that you've learned are, because that's something that I think is super relevant to entrepreneurs, no matter what industry, no matter what projects they're working on.
Yeah.
So how do you guys, divide the work?
Yeah.
What works for your team?
Yeah. So it really is, dependent on, we want to be respectful, of course, first and foremost of each other's schedules and try to understand like what's going to work for the both of us. What do we like to do? What do we not like to do? And these were actually mistakes that I had made with Connor, when I first started Ecopreneur as the video platform. I made those mistakes because I was trying to push him to do things that he didn't care to do and things that he just didn't have the expertise or comfortability to do. And sometimes that's required as an entrepreneur. You have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone. But most of the time you thrive in what you're already good at, right? That's really your biggest strength. So trying to really exercise that and like really make that your own. So I realized that making those mistakes before. And when I really went through that pivot and built Ecopreneur 2.0, it was understanding that and knowing, okay, I made those mistakes before. I'm going to learn from them. I'm not going to make it again. And we had that conversation. Hey, Jared, what are you best at? What do you think that you're worst at? Being transparent with each other. These are my weaknesses. These are my strengths. And even myself too, I was transparent with them. These are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. Okay. Based off of that, how can we feed off each other and actually build a formidable team here? How can we fill the plugs or the holes that need to be plugged essentially, right? So that's when we really started to just take off and like actually build traction and have a team that would make sense around what Ecopreneur is trying to accomplish. So it was really exciting. We've had those conversations. We started to build our developers, our contractors behind us that can fill those holes that need to be plugged. With Jared, he's great at planning, strategy, operations, design work, like those, you know, understanding branding, culture. Like he's really good at that stuff. Me, I'm the marketing guy in the sense of like adding numerical value to, you know, our customers and clients and whatever. Sales, I have a deep sales background. I did that when I was here at Stonehill College. You know, and being kind of the face and like the talking guy, like always going and pushing the platform and pitching to people and doing those kinds of things, getting the money. That's my strengths. So, you know, understanding that and like, okay, how do we like merge the two together beautifully? And on top of that, work with each other's schedules, figure those things out. How do we find the right talent that we need? And we were luckily able to finally get our right talent with the developer who's, you know, helped us. We were able to find, you know, platform bubble.io, which is really great. By the way, great tip for any entrepreneur that is looking to build a low code, like no code platform, pretty much essentially without having to kill yourself with a huge bill of like money that you have to pay just to have like an app or something. So little tip for you guys, but we were able to, you know, finally build our platform off of that, which was really, really awesome. So once we started to understand those dynamics of like who's good at what, things just took off.
So still on the coding thing to me is really interesting because I think that's a challenge that a lot of creators have.
Right.
When you get into this accelerator, how did you make the actual like product? How did you make the actual tech? You mentioned bubble.io.
Yes.
Which I'm definitely familiar with. Do you personally like operate the bubble.io account? Do you have other people who are more tech based? What does that whole project side of things look like?
Yeah, for sure. So I have the account, right? I created it and I started to learn more about it and even start to do some, you know, bubble.io kind of coding in a sense. It's not really coding, but it's like drag and drop kind of platform. But you have to have like a base understanding of it and like how functionality works and workflows and things like that, which I was able to luckily have since I learned that here at school. So, you know, I built the platform in the sense of having the team around us. I hired the right developers to get technically in there and like start to put it together in all those workflows. Where
did you find them?
They were based in, so they're actually based in Lithuania, which is funny.
Okay.
They're actually the top 1% of bubblers on the platform.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So you hired them through the platform.
Through the platform.
Nice.
Yes. So it was actually, so we went through an agency that helped us, you know, they essentially sell their, you know, bubble.io developers to entrepreneurs like us that are trying to build platforms. Kind of went through them, but then started learning about like the actual developers within bubble.io, and they were top 1% of them. And luckily, actually, I got into contact with them because my girlfriend, who is also building her own platform, she had, you know, those developers in her place that helped her build her platform. And at the time, I had a developer that wasn't the best. He was doing what he needed to do, like kind of that bare minimum, but it wasn't exactly the platform that I envisioned for Ecopreneur. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it didn't fully work out with him. But then again, I was strapped for developers and I was like, oh man, okay. And I was willing to give it like one last shot at this point. I was like, okay, if this doesn't work, like I'm just going to kind of move on from here. Luckily, you know, my girlfriend connected me with her developers, and they come to find out they're building a platform for like a company that was, I forgot the exact name, I think Ethereum or something like that, funded by Mark Cuban himself.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, he put in like 25 million into this company. It was like crazy. And at that point, these guys were like, yeah, no, we're working on that. And like, you know, we're excited to take on more, you know, platforms to build, and we're trying to grow our own agency of, you know, developers and such. And I was like, oh, I hit the jackpot.
Nice.
Yeah. At that point, I was able to finally build the platform and within the past year do that. So, you know, shout out to them. They're amazing, by the way. And pretty much like from there on going forward, we were able to have that have that build there. But they technically own that.
Got it.
Yeah.
They own what?
The build of it. Like pretty much they're helping build Ecopreneur itself, like the technical aspect of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so do they own your platform?
No. So I'm the owner, Jared's the owner, we're the co-founders of it. They don't own the platform, but they're owning the build of it, like the work of it, I mean.
Got it.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. They have the contract.
Yeah, exactly.
So is that just a web app?
Yes.
Just for websites, web browsers?
Yes. So right now it's a web app that's mobilely, efficient.
Mobile friendly.
Yep, it's all optimized there. So you can go on your phone and sign up as a volunteer, nonprofit, brand, whatever it may be, right off your phone, iPad, tablet, whatever device that you're on. Yeah.
Is there an easy way to get that into the App Store? And do you have any interest in that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've thought about it. We're not ready yet for that because one, it's going to cost a lot of money. Two, we haven't.
How much? Like what costs are you envisioning?
Like at least, and this is at least $100,000 to build the app, because there's a lot of intricacies and connections that you have to have when it comes to building an app like ours, especially a marketplace. It's not a simple kind of like Tinder swipe left or right app. You have to really build something that connects the dots when it comes to like an Ecopreneur like marketplace.
Okay. You can't just like convert your bubble platform.
It's not that simple. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I always think like, wouldn't that be easy?
No,
it's not
unfortunately.
quite as easy.
I wish it was. It would have already been out there. So
right.
Yeah.
What kind of investment has it taken for you to get to where Ecopreneur is now as a web app? And what kind of investment in terms of the platform do you expect in the future?
Yeah. I've probably bootstrapped between, I'd say like 40 to 50K at this point.
How about not include, does that include like the work that hasn't really panned out?
Yes.
Okay, so what if you only include the work that has been successful? And that's honestly like not going to be a great benchmark for anybody watching, because if you're watching and you're going to build a platform, you're probably going to mess up.
Yeah, exactly.
But what about just of the work that has actually come to fruition today?
Yeah, I'd say half of that, like solidly like about 25K.
Got it. Cool.
Of that. So half the journey was, mistakes. And I needed to know that I was going to just eat that money and, let it go and like not get emotional about it. I used to very hard, like get emotional and just like start crying. And I'd be like, I can't believe I just dropped like 5K on this. What am I doing? I should be putting this money into my student loans and paying that off right now. What am I doing?
Yeah. We built an app once, a web app.
Yep.
Couple $1,000 down the drain.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
How'd it go?
Yeah, just not good enough for anything that we would want people to use.
Okay.
I think we probably poured in like $2,000 or $3,000.
Oh wow.
And it just like didn't. The functionality, the user experience wasn't great.
Yep.
And so one thing that I've learned is, if we had spent $2,000 to build an app that didn't have the best user experience, the best user experience, but it solved the problem, like Craigslist did.
Yes.
Like Craigslist's user experience is almost the same thing that it's always been.
Yep.
But it was innovative and it solved the problem.
Yep.
And when you do that, you don't need any bells and whistles. You don't need it to be fancy.
Right.
If it's just solving a problem. And so that's like,
it's as simple as that.
If I had poured $2,000 into a web app that like provided value in a way that nothing else on the internet did, it would have been so worth it. Right. Even if it wasn't the easiest experience to use, if it was truly innovative, if it was a brilliant solution,
for sure,
it would have gotten traction. And so that's like one lesson that I've learned, that like, if you're getting too complicated, if you're not just solving a problem in its simplest form, then it's going to be an uphill battle.
Absolutely. Yeah. My biggest advice to any entrepreneur that wants to get into tech or build a platform is make sure you identify what the problem is first. You know, like for me, I started off and I just started doing, which is okay. But like you have to know that you're going to lose a lot of money. And if you're not okay with that, don't do it that way. Go into it knowing this is the problem I need to solve because you've done your hypothesis. It's like going to school, like you're in chemistry or you're in biology. You come up with the hypothesis, you test the hypothesis, and then you come to the solution, right? And you know what formula it's going to take for you to solve that issue. And that's exactly entrepreneurship. It's finding out what the problem is first and then going to actively work towards solving it. And in our case, for example, like the problem is the fragmentation of volunteerism. Volunteering is so fragmented. Like there's no platform for these nonprofit, like they literally are just nonprofits are putting their projects on Google Forms, Eventbrite, hoping that people are going to sign up. No one's signing up. I've been talking to these nonprofits, towns, cities directly, mayors, and that's the issue that they deal with. And on the volunteer side, there's no array of choices that I have for volunteering. I'm forced to do this because my school told me to do this. Why can't we make it fun and engaging and actually a useful thing for people to remember when you get to your 30s? Oh, I used to volunteer at Ecopreneur. I gained all of these things because I did that. Like, how cool is that, right? And, not to drink my own Kool-Aid, but essentially, like, we solved an issue and we're actively working towards solving issues here. And that's what it needs to be when you build a platform. So that's kind of my biggest advice for any entrepreneur.
Yeah. So with me and my experience, I knew, because Pure World has always had this adventure brand. Mm-hmm. So traveling, I knew that we were going to try to create a platform for travelers. Yeah. So I didn't start with the problem, but instead I started with a group, a target market.
Okay, there you go. Makes sense.
And then I did extensive surveys and interviews. And, I reached out to as many travelers in the age group that I was focusing on, and I was actually able to get a table at the Study Abroad Fair at Babson, where all of the students who had studied abroad set up their own presentations about studying abroad in the countries that they studied in.
Right.
And all of the students who wanted to study abroad were going to get information to decide where they would consider studying.
Right.
And Pure World had its own table, and we were giving out free stickers for people who answered a survey. So they were already the market that we knew we wanted to build for, but we didn't know exactly what problem we were trying to solve for that market.
Yep.
And so it was a very exploratory experience where we were just kind of just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. Like on a scale of 1 to 5, how easy is it to find places?
Right.
People are like, it's 5. It's easy. Google exists.
Yeah.
Or, and okay, dang, I thought that was going to be the idea, but it's not going to be the idea. Asking all these different questions, just trying to figure out where are their pain points in the traveler's experience. And we're still trying to work on that. But if we could just identify that one most painful point and then find the simplest way to solve that. It doesn't need any bells and whistles. It can just be a simple platform, a simple website. It's a solution, and as long as you're solving that problem,
absolutely.
That's the core. That's the most important thing.
That's probably the journey of Pure World right there, right? It's a journey. You have to understand that when you're building anything, it's a journey.
And that's why when I started by saying, kudos to anybody who's starting their own apparel company, because they're taking the first steps, and it's not about whether or not the first step is the right step. It's how many steps until you find that right step in the right direction. Yeah. But if you stop taking the steps, you're never going to find the right direction.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
And with that being said, I find it really interesting, the story of Slack.
Yeah.
So Slack, for anybody who doesn't know, is this workplace messaging platform, and it's kind of like Discord or WhatsApp. And basically, it was created as an internal communication platform for the company who is pursuing a different
route
venture.
Yeah.
It was just the way that they communicated within their team, and they had like built it out, and then they realized, wait, this thing that we built to just message each other is actually pretty great, and it's better than what other companies are using for their internal communication. And then that's
the
what
solution.
Slack is. And so by practicing the entrepreneurship, by practicing your ability to keep your eyes open to problems and then solve them, you might be solving a problem that exists that you don't even realize.
Right.
And I think that's a fascinating idea of it's an experience of just building a company. If you keep going at it, if you avoid bankruptcy for as long as possible, eventually, I believe you'll figure it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, and I'll be transparent too. Like, as I'm building Ecopreneur, a lot of people ask, like, why don't you go full time? Like, why is it? And I am full time, 100%. My heart's even more. I'm overtime, but I also have a 9-to-5 that's supplying me right now. And that's pretty much helping to fund the platform and really the life and the freedom that I strive to have building Ecopreneur. But more importantly, what's important to me right now is the impact. And that's where I want to start. We could have easily monetized by now, but that's not what I'm focused on. What I'm focused on is actually making an impact and like the growth aspect of it. Just like, Zuckerberg with Facebook, like that's what it was. And I remember him talking to his first employees. A lot of them were saying, we can do advertising. Why can't we do it now? He would draw on a whiteboard growth, and then he'd point at it and he said, that's exactly what we need to focus on right now. The monetization comes later. And that's exactly the model that we're doing too.
Do you ever think about fundraising?
Yeah, we actually have done that before. We kind of had a friends and family round. Initially with Ecopreneur, it was like when I started doing when we were doing the video content, it was a Kickstarter that we did. We were close to raising our goal. We didn't quite hit it because I think...
What was the goal?
I think it was about 7,500, something like that. We got to I think 500 away from that, and we didn't raise it. And unfortunately, Kickstarter, they don't give you the money if you don't hit your goal or more. Right. So it was a heartbreaking thing for me, because then I was like, man, do people not believe in what we're doing? And then I look back now and I realize it wasn't clear what we were actually doing, and there wasn't a clear solution. It was just, we're a YouTube channel. We're trying to push out video content, put money into us. And we're going to do some more video content. And that's at the time when Connor and we were trying to do this. It didn't work out because there wasn't a clear journey or story there. And now that we've finally identified that, if we tried to do it, I feel like we would have raised triple what we were able to try to do. But we then went ahead and re-raised again afterwards, because we were desperate for the funds to be able to continue the works of Ecopreneur and the video content that we were doing and all that stuff. So we took it to GoFundMe after, and GoFundMe lets you keep the funds that you raise, right? So at that point, I probably called, I'll be honest, probably 200 different people in my contacts, just one after the other. And this was kind of during the pandemic. So, we had all the time in the world. So I was like, I'm going to just call everybody that I can. And luckily everyone was super supportive, and they just wanted to see me succeed. They just believed in Philip Toussaint. They didn't believe so much in Ecopreneur yet, because it wasn't where it needed to be yet. But it was I like you, Phil. I've known you for X amount of time. Let me give you $50. Let me give you $100, $500. It was great. And from that experience, it brought me back to when I started in sales, and just the kind of the nitty gritty little things I used to start with. And it really was heartwarming for me to then call those people back, and for them to still be super supportive and be like, yeah, I know you didn't get to hit your Kickstarter. I'm so sorry. I'll still give you the $50. Like, it's okay. I still believe in you. I still believe in what you're trying to do. Keep going. Don't give up. And those were really the moments where I knew, like, I need to keep this rolling, because I have something here. I just need to figure out what that is. So it was really great to be able to go through that experience. And, I learned a lot from that. And it humbled me as a founder, and it broke my ego tremendously, because I was like, wow, you're not going to win all the time. You're going to fall and fail and lose a lot more than win. But those wins, man, I'm telling you, they hit.
That's an awesome story.
I appreciate that.
So a lot of this conversation has talked about your college experience, because that's what drove you to start Ecopreneur. But I'm also interested in your life and your experiences before college.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I like to talk about like that junior year, because that's kind of a time period where a lot of people are considering what their next steps will be, after they graduate high school, where they want to take their lives. So
right.
Do you want to talk a little bit about like that time of your life?
For sure. Absolutely. I'm happy to. So when I was younger, I always kind of had an affinity to nature, but like, it wasn't that deep, but it was there. I grew up in a very tough household. Parents weren't compatible. It was that whole ordeal. Unfortunately, my parents got divorced later on in life, but, we still stuck together as a family. And that was always our core value, as sticking together. Up until really my junior year, I had no knowledge of anything environmental science, no climate change. Like, I didn't know anything about that world of things, but I've heard about it. And it was just, I was a kid. I didn't really pay attention to it. I was like, oh, whatever. Okay. Interesting, but whatever. Junior year, towards the end, of the year, which is like April, May, something like that. My buddy Joe and I, we were coming back from our tennis practice. And he essentially was asking, hey, I'm going to be building kind of like a research project, summer before we go into our senior year. Would you be interested in like being my partner on that project? I'm looking for somebody to really support me in being able to do the work that I'm going to be doing. Essentially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out how buildings can self-regulate their climate within the building. And, without a thermometer or anything like that, just using a garden.
Is this guy a nerd?
He was a big nerd.
That's the nerdiest thing I've ever heard. Like, just the idea of like doing a science project.
Yeah.
Like during the summertime. That's
Yep.
Awesome.
It was so cool. And I didn't know it. Like, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah.
He said this will help you get into college.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. That was the tagline. It was like it's going to help you get into college.
And honestly, if I were going to give advice to somebody who's a junior, I'd say
do it.
Just do a science project during the summer and just like pick a really interesting topic.
Yep.
Do your best.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it was. I didn't know anything about it, but I was like, what he sold me on it was, you're going to you have a high chance of getting to college doing that. I was like, yeah, why not? So at that point I jumped on, and he was basically, the project was building rooftop gardens on top of buildings. And there was a little bit more to it. There was like a side of research that he was doing with more of the climate regulation within the building and all that cool stuff. And it got like super scientific, but my portion was to do research on rooftop gardens and how they would affect buildings and like how they can be constructed and things like that. And I was all about it. I was like, yo, this is actually kind of dope. Like, this is cool. I want to like learn more about this. So he handed me, which is kind of funny, it was my Bible for the summer, but Environmental Science 101 for Dummies, essentially one of those 4 dummies books. And he handed that to me, and it was already kind of highlighted and things like that, because he had went through it before. And he was like, you need to like basically learn everything about environmental science. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I had nothing to do that summer. I was like, why not? I'm not going to just sit and do nothing. So that's what I did. And that's where I truly fell in love with environmental everything, science, the science behind it, climate change. It opened my eyes like like I've never seen before. Like it was crazy.
Rooftop gardens sound really cool. I think the integration of like people and the environment and what do they call it? Like people like putting beehives on buildings. And like it's this juxtaposition of like people and their lifestyles with the environment.
Yes.
That sounds really interesting. And that's something that's very traditional, not necessarily in American culture, but just like throughout human history.
Absolutely.
Our relationship with the environment.
Yeah.
And I think that we are seeing a revival of that. And that's where you get what if we put a garden on the roof?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
We're going back to our roots.
Yeah, which I think is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So what was your experience like for high school?
Yeah. So my experience in high school was very interesting. I was not who I am today at all. Like I was the shy kid. I was super introverted. I had some friends, but like, I was like the kid that, people used to joke and be like, oh, you're like the whitest black guy I've ever met, and like all this crazy stuff. And like, because I just had a very different personality from, like what I've been able to build for myself and who I actually am today. And it was kind of funny because like I grew up in a Catholic private, school all my life. Like literally that's since I was all my life.
Like before high school too.
Before high school too. I had like in the OG days, I had nuns as my teachers.
Wow.
Back when I was like 5. And like they were like, it was like you had to sit with your hands folded on your desk, or we were going to like slap your hand with a ruler type of thing. That's where my my manners and my gentleman like nature started, because I was like literally beat into it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you went to Spelman.
Yes.
In Brockton.
I did. Yep.
Brockton, Massachusetts.
Yep.
And what was that like? Was it hard to get in?
No, I don't think it was hard to get in, but it was definitely hard to keep up.
Got it.
Because it was a rigorous courses, and I was never the best student. To be honest, I was your C student kind of kid. Mm-hmm. Like I had very good A's, very good B's, but I also had very good D's and C's, and it was tough.
Yeah, and I would say that C's in private school are probably equivalent to like B pluses.
Yeah. Probably
in public school. So just to give you a little cred,
a little pat on the back there.
Yeah. And like an A in a private school seems much harder to get than an A in public school.
For sure. And I know that firsthand because my dad was a public school teacher in Boston for 20 plus years, and he would always say that like, he was tough on me. He was definitely like, because my parents are Haitian, growing up with that Caribbean household. They're like, they expect you to go to school. You got to be a doctor. You got to be a lawyer. You got to be some sort of engineer or scientist. You know what I mean? Like they push you in that route. It's like one of the three, and it's like you got to choose, right? Very rarely you'll see that they'll let you kind of do outside of that, right? And it's a very different culture because they want success for their kids, right? They came from a hard setting, and I don't blame them. Like I understand that viewpoint. Third world country. Tough times over there, lots of turmoil. They come to America seeking a better future for their legacy, for their kids. And like for me, it was a lot of pressure because I had to like try to uphold that and like live up to that. So when the time came that I wanted to be, an entrepreneur, essentially a businessman, like I wanted to get into that world of things. It was funny because my dad, he kind of was a little bit of a rebel himself. He did that growing up. He had a bunch of properties around Boston while he was a teacher, had his own tax business, all that stuff in Hyde Park. And it was really cool growing up because I watched him do that. And I wanted to do that myself. I just didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew like that's what I want in my life. Like that's where I want to be. I don't know where it's going to take me, but I want to get there. But then like with my mom was a lot more traditional. So my mom was like, when I first told her that, she was like, are you sure? Are you sure this is the right path for you? Because I don't know. I feel like you're going to become broke one day or something. Like, it was along those lines essentially. Right. And then I was like, Mom, but no, you saw Dad do it. Dad did this and that. But then my mom would remind me, yeah, but your dad had a hard time. Look he kind of lost some things here. He lost money, the 2008 recession at the time hit hard. It hit our family hard because my dad was, investing in properties and doing those things. But it was also a great time because then we were able to gain a lot of, assets and value out of that happening. So it was a kind of like a love-hate, time period for us. But for me, I went in, I was like, no, Mom, like, I'm set on this. Like, I really do want to pursue this path. I don't know why, but like, I feel like this is what's meant for me. And she respected that. She was like, okay, let's see how you do. Let's, she always still kind of pegged me on, why aren't you a science major? Because I originally tried to do that here at Stonehill, things like that. But then I pivoted to the business and environmental side, both. So I was a double major here at Stonehill, environmental and business. Two very different worlds. But
that's what I did too.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So it's you're trying to combine the two, and you're like showing to people that there is a middle, there is an in-between where you can have both, best of both worlds essentially. And I'm glad that you went through that, because I feel like now, I understand better why you and I have the same mindset and like understand each other basically. Because a lot of people on one side with business, it's like profit. On the environmental side, it was like, when I went to those classes, everybody's all about socialism.
Yeah, impact. Way different.
Kumbaya, right? Yeah. It was different. So I was always that never fit in fully with either type of kid. And I don't want to speak for yourself, but you probably in a sense were too. Right. So like, how do you find that middle ground? How do you showcase that you can have both, best of both worlds? So I try to tell that to my mom, and my mom, she kind of understood it in her own way. Because coming from, especially still with her background and all that stuff, like she still came from that hard setting. So it wasn't like a clear grasp for her. I feel like that's more of a Western American kind of notion of like building your own legacy, going to do something different. It's hard for somebody that came from a hard setting to see that so clearly. But now my mom is proudest of me than she's ever been in my life, in her life, and my life too. She's seen the path that I've tried to embark on, the success I've built for myself already, not only with the platform, but just still sticking to the career, right? Building that as well, the six-figure salary, all those things. And like, she's like, I'm proud of you, because you stuck to your guts, and you said you wanted to do this. You stuck to it. You worked your butt off, and you got there. And I'm not there yet. And that's the thing. I'm so ambitious, but at the same time, I know that I'm so young still. I'm 25. I still have so much time in my life. Like Gary Vee says all the time, like, you're young when you're 40, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So
I was going to pull a Gary Vee line right there.
So like he's always talking about those things. And I recognize that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is just getting started on my journey. Even though I've already done so much at 25, I'm still just getting started basically. So I still want to, build a impact platform that's profitable. I still want to add value to everybody's lives first before I can, make that money. I still want to have the freedom in my life to get married, to have my children, to build that legacy, to, have financial time freedom, like all those things that I still strive to have as an entrepreneur, right? So that's really been the journey, and it still continues to be every day.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Best of luck with everything.
Appreciate it.
I really appreciate this conversation. I mean, I think that there was a lot of lessons to be learned.
Absolutely.
For everybody who's been sticking around and listening in, how can they follow and support you?
Yeah. So, you guys can find us on our website, ecopreneurmedia.com. We're also pretty much on all social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok. We even have a Snapchat. We don't really use it that much, and we haven't posted on our TikTok yet, but we're on there. So you can find us Ecopreneur Media, pretty much either Ecopreneur or Ecopreneur Media. You'll find us pretty much all over the place, and, you know, follow our content, YouTube as well. We post some videos, really exciting stuff. We haven't been way too actively lately because we're so, you know, focused right now on our volunteer platform and building our audiences there. But our goal is, you know, to continue to push out content around the volunteer work that we have through our platform and things that you can even get involved in too. So check us out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to support the Pure World podcast, you can shop your sustainably sourced gear at pureworldshop.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your content. Just search up Pure World and you'll find us. I'm Jack Flynn. This is Phil. And we thank you for joining us. See ya.